everyone, welcome to my December wrap-up video. If you don't know, I'm Cindy Winget, the author of Gothic Horror Mashups, and welcome to my channel. So, like I just stated, we're going to be doing my December wrap-up, so I am going to start this video, however, doing a Christmas haul, so if you're interested in that, go ahead and stick around. If you're not, then just fast forward a little bit and you can get right into the books. So I had a very good Christmas this year. I always want bookish things for my family because they all know I love books, but I never get bookish items ever. I don't know why. Maybe it's just too like on the nose and they want to get me something that I'll be surprised by. I don't know. But they really came through this year, and so I was excited to show you what I got. Not everything I got is bookish, but some of it is horror themed, and I always enjoy watching other people when they get items like that. So hopefully you'll enjoy this. So let's go ahead and get started. So first, my husband gave me these earrings. They're star earrings. And then he gave me a necklace that matches. And then he's also a nerd who loves Legos, and so he gave me this Lego bouquet of roses, which I thought was really cute and sweet. And then he actually put it together for me, and he kept asking me, like, your present needs some assembly required, and I don't know if you want to do it yourself or if you want me to do it. And he kept going back and forth, but he decided to go ahead and make it, which is probably good because, I don't know, it looks kind of complicated. I'm not sure I'd be able to know how to do it. I don't put Legos together, but anyways, I thought that was sweet. And then my sister-in-law gave me an electric blanket, but then she also gave me this Pennywise duck and then this Beetlejuice duck. I don't know why they're ducks, but they're cute. And then my brother gave me a Barnes & Noble gift card, so woohoo! And then he also gave me some ear pods, so hopefully I'll be able to listen to some audiobooks. I always want to listen to audiobooks more often, but I usually opt for music when I'm cleaning over audiobooks, but maybe that will change now that I've got these AirPods. I normally only do audiobooks when I'm on like long drives, so, or maybe like a long walk or something, but this will help. And then my sister also gave me a Barnes & Noble gift card. Woohoo, because I always want one and I never get one. And then she also found these cute cat earrings. They're shaped like cats, but they have books on them. Hopefully you can see that. So I thought those were super cute. And then she also got me this Create a Story because she obviously knows that I'm a writer. And it's got like these prompts in it. So it's like write a story about finding a purpose. And then it will have 10 words that you're supposed to use in that story. Or like, write a story about a reporter who gets a list of officials running the criminal underworld from an anonymous source. And then you have to use these words: guilt, shoot, package, headline. You know, so that's kind of fun. I don't know if I'll necessarily use it all that often, but, you know, it might jumpstart some creative juices, or I might just use it for like a regular notebook. I don't know. But the fact that she just thought of me, I just thought that was really nice. And then my parents gave me this Loungefly bag, and it's Edgar Allan Poe. It's got his books right here. Well, obviously not all of them, but some of his books. And I just thought that was really cute. And then they also gave me some fuzzy slippers. Who doesn't love slippers? And then my in-laws gave me some money, and so I bought some stuff with that. But my mother-in-law also took some of my diamond dots because I do diamond dot paintings, and she framed some of them, so I thought that was really nice of her. Anyways, with the money that I got a couple of movies. I got House on Haunted Hill. This is the old black and white one. And then I also bought the new one. Well, it's not new anymore. I think it's like 2006. I don't know. I just know it's more modern, but I don't think it's like modern. Like, I don't think it just barely came out. I think it was probably 15 years ago, but I have not seen that one yet. It's still on its way to me from Amazon. I haven't received it in the mail yet, but I have seen this one, but I wanted to see the modern take on it. I really enjoyed this one, and I look forward to watching the other one. And then I also got this shirt. It says feeling, I don't know if you can see that very well. It says feeling extra Grinchy today. So I thought that was really cute. And then I got these earrings to match it. Hopefully you can see that. He's holding the ornament. And then I am a super big fan of the TV show Supernatural. So I got this t-shirt that says Supernatural. And then I got a Funko Pop of Sam and Dean Winchester. So I thought they were really cute. I'm actually rewatching it for like the 5th time. So I've never actually made it to the very end because there's 15 seasons. And towards like season 7, it starts to lose me. I don't know. The dynamic between the brothers gets lost, you know. Them being so close and helping each other and being worried for each other, that's kind of what I loved about the show. And so when things happen to the point where I don't know how they could ever possibly mend their relationship, then and the storyline just went in crazy directions and I just didn't really love it. But I hear it eventually gets better, so we'll see. But like the first 5 seasons, phenomenal. Loved it. And I rewatch them all the time. So, anyways. Okay, so that was my Christmas, and it was phenomenal. I really enjoyed everything I got. It was a really good Christmas. I hope you guys had a good Christmas, and please leave me a comment down below and tell me what your favorite gift was that you received, even if it's not bookish. I still want to know about it. I did get some books with the money I got, and obviously with the gift cards, but I think I'm going to save them for a book haul video, so you'll have to stay tuned for that one. So anyways, so let's go ahead and get into the books now and see what we read. I actually read quite a few books this month. Normally I read 6 or 7 books. I think I got to like 14 this time, but that's because most of them were very short, and that's the only reason. And I had some DNFs. So speaking of DNFs, unfortunately, the very first book I tried to read this month was a DNF. And it was a holiday romance called The Mistletoe Motive. And this was a very short romance, probably novella length. And I only read the first couple of chapters and I couldn't do it. It's my favorite trope where it's like the enemies to lover trope, which I really enjoy. But this one just felt incredibly forced. Like she hated him for seemingly no reason, or the reasons given were pretty vague or superficial, and I just don't like that. Like, if you're gonna have an enemies to lovers trope, like, have a real reason not to love him. I mean, not to the point where you don't like the male main character, because obviously you need to sympathize with him and you can't make him too hateful, or else as a reader you're also going to hate him. But at the same time, I've seen it done better where, you know, maybe he was kind of a prick in the beginning, but he has some character growth, or maybe the reason seemed very hateful, but maybe she didn't have the entire story, you know, like something else went on that she wasn't privy to, or, you know, something like that. But just to like be like, oh, this guy's probably going to take over my job, and so I hate him, and, you know, the owners of the bookstore love him more than they like me, and so I hate it. That just seems immature, in my opinion. So I didn't love that aspect of it. And even though she hated him, she was literally drooling over him in every paragraph, saying how hot he was, and look at his muscles, and look at this, and look at that, and having like daydreams about him at work. And so I'm like, if you're gonna hate him and then you're gonna simultaneously be like, oh, but he's so hot and sexy, like it just doesn't ring true or genuine, and it just makes me roll my eyes. It's just too forced and too obviously this is the love interest, so I have to force that I find him attractive, like right from the get-go, and that just annoys me. I don't love that. And speaking of the fact that she's drooling over this guy, she says in like the first 1 or 2 chapters that she is neurodivergent, and then she's also demisexual. I actually had to look up demisexual. I had never heard that one before. And basically, it's when you don't feel sexually attracted to somebody unless you have an emotional connection to them first. Which I think it's kind of weird personally, because isn't that just being a human being, or being a woman specifically? Like, I don't feel like there has to be a label for that. Maybe you feel differently about that, but I feel like that's just being part of the human race. Like, you should have an emotional connection to somebody before you have sex with them. I mean, obviously one night stands happen, but I'm just saying it's pretty human nature to want to connect with somebody emotionally, and then you find them sexually attractive. Like, that's just common sense in my opinion. So I don't know, but the fact that she had to actually state outright that she's demisexual, and then she's doing the exact opposite the entire time, because she's literally having sexual fantasies about this man, But then she's simultaneously telling you in the next paragraph, oh, but I don't have sexual feelings for somebody unless I have emotional connections to them, even though she's been saying that she hates this man. So make that make sense. You know, if you're going to have somebody be a certain way, they need to show that, you know? And obviously, I only read a few chapters, but she doesn't seem neurodivergent in any type of way either. And so at that point, I felt like it was just a marketing scheme, you know, like let's jump on the bandwagon because this is what's popular and this is what people want to read. And just to make my character more interesting, you know, but it doesn't ring true. Like if you're gonna have them be a certain way, then they need to act that way, you know. And so that kind of annoyed me. It just feels like a gimmick at that point. And I don't know, this entire book just gave off very like cheesy, hallmarky vibes, and it was just like too much in your face. Like I don't know how to describe it, but I mean, I understand that this is a very short romance, so you kind of got to get going right away. But when it's just so like shoved in your face the second you open the book, you know, before you even get to know these characters, before you get a whole lot of setup, it's just instant to the romance and shoved in your face that this is the romance and this is what we're doing. Like, I guess I like it to be a little bit more slow burn than that. So I hope this review made sense. It sounds all over the place to me, but hopefully you understand where I'm coming from. But yeah, so I only read like 3 chapters and then I was done. So I DNF'd this one. But I still was in the mood for a good holiday romance. And so I picked up Right Before Christmas. And this one is about a writer, which I love. I love books about writers. And so he's going into this small town because he's has this deadline that he really needs to finish this book in like 3 weeks. And so his agent, she's like, well, you need to hire somebody to cook and clean for you because, you know, you got to take care of yourself, but I also need you in there working. And so the agent ends up hiring this woman to come cook for him. And she's going to be the one that falls in love with him. So this book was frustrating because when I first started it, I thought this was going to be a 5-star new favorite. I was vibing with it so hard. I loved the writing, I loved the characters, I loved the setup. The author kind of set up the story in a way that where it's like you've got Mel, where he doesn't really know that the person that he liked out in the outer world is actually the woman that was hired to cook and clean for him because he's held up in his room writing, you know. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be so much fun, you know, because then when he goes out, he likes this woman, and then but maybe he'll have like issues with her cooking or issues with this woman that he doesn't really see that's living in his house with him, you know. And I just thought it was gonna be so much fun. But then it's like the author built up to this for a few chapters, and then just immediately he finds out, and it's like, oh, well, that's not fun anymore. Like, you just lost all that tension. You just lost this amazing storyline, which was really going to be intriguing. So that was kind of a bummer. I hope that wasn't too much of a spoiler because it really happens in the beginning. You know, I thought that was what this book was going to be about, but then the author's like, nope, he's just going to find out right away. So, you know, it could, I guess, be a spoiler, but not really because it was right at the beginning. But anyway, so I was like, okay, whatever. But I still liked it, so I kept going. And then, I don't know, every like kiss scene or like sexy scene, although this was closed door, there was no actual sex scenes, but as far as like the sexual tension goes, you know, it was very cringy. And so I was like, I don't love their first kiss. And everything happened too quickly. And so they like got together way too fast. Like we're not even halfway through the book and they're already like proclaiming their love or whatever. And I just don't like that because then the whole middle seems very boring because all of the tension is gone. And then you know something's going to happen, like, oh, well, they're going to have some kind of miscommunication or something's going to happen to break them apart so that they can come back together, you know, which if done well, that could work, but a lot of times it feels forced, and again, it makes the middle very boring because they're like together. And for me personally, I like romances where it's like, I mean, obviously you know they're going to be together at the end because it's not a romance otherwise, but it's the journey to get there. Like, how are they going to get together? You know, how are they going to proclaim their love? How are they going to make this happen? And if it happens too soon, then I'm just like bored. So I don't know, because of all these decisions that the author was making, I just halfway through, I just found my interest waning and I just didn't really care anymore. And so I unfortunately decided to DNF this one as well. But I did like that we were getting the point of view of both the main character and the male main character. I liked seeing stories from both perspectives, so that was nice. And these were older characters. They were like 45 years old, and you don't get a whole lot of romances that are like an older age. So I thought that was also very cool. But yeah, I just didn't hold my attention to the end. I just lost interest in it, unfortunately. And then this is a very small pet peeve. I just want to mention it though. So this woman, she gets this job being essentially a maid for this writer, but the reason she got this job, I had an issue with personally. So her daughter wants to move out and get an apartment and be on her own. And she's really like angsty and mad at her mother because her mom keeps telling her, well, I can't afford that. I can't afford to get you an apartment, so you can't live on your own right now. And so she's all like, meh. What? Like, why is it your mother's responsibility to buy you an apartment? If you want to make it on your own, you got to make it on your own. And so the mom, she gets this job so that for Christmas, she can give her daughter the down payment on an apartment or the security deposit or whatever. That just bothers me. So personally, I would have liked it better if the daughter was working towards getting the apartment, but she just can't scrape together enough money, and she's been working hard, and she's disappointed that she doesn't get to move out and be at her own. And her mom wants to do this really nice thing for her for Christmas. I'd be perfectly fine with that. Perfectly on board. But to have this mean, angsty teenager be upset with her mom because her mom's not buying her the apartment, and the mom being like, oh, I'm sorry, honey, I can't afford to give you that. Like, no. If your kid wants to live on their own and have their own apartment, they have to pay for it. If they want to be on their own, they have to be on their own. So that just bothered me. That just rubbed me the wrong way, just personally. But like I said, that's very small. I mean, that's not going to make me not like the book. That's just a tiny part of the plot. But I just thought I'd mention it because I found it weird. Okay, so because I DNF'd the first two romances I tried to read, I was like, okay, maybe I just need to focus on something else for a minute. So I found this short story called Christmas Night of the Scurry Furry. This is only 65 pages long, which is the only reason why I finished this one. Or else I would have DNF'd this one as well. But because it was so short, I finished it. And unfortunately, this one just didn't work for me. I didn't realize it was supposed to be like comedic, which honestly, that's on me because you look at this cover and the title, and I should have known. I should have known. You know, so this is very Gremlin-like, and I love Gremlins. I think Gremlins is very fun. But I don't know, the way they tried to do the humor in this short story just didn't work for me. I just didn't find it funny. You know, it was like they would smash open these dolls, because that's essentially what these scurry furries are, is the new latest and greatest toy that everybody is trying to scramble to get for Christmas for their kids. But they're coming alive and they're attacking people in the store. Very fun, you know, I can get behind that. But it was just the humor was just not to my liking. It would be like they would smash open these dolls or these toys and, oh, it smells like they farted. And then, you know, the guy next to him would look at them and be like, did you really fart? You know, we're trying to fight for our lives and you farted. Oh, no, it's not me. It's the toy. Like, it's that kind of humor. And that just makes me roll my eyes. I don't like that kind of like bathroom humor. I just think it's stupid. So it really just wasn't for me. And the story that's already ridiculous by the end gets like beyond ridiculous. I can't tell you why without spoilers, but I don't know. It just wasn't for me. I just didn't find it funny. Didn't like this one. Would give it 1 star. The dialogue was just very cringy and the writing wasn't very good. There's a lot of typos. Even for something that's this short, like you would think you would find most of the typos when it's only 65 pages long. Let's just say that it was trying to be Gremlins but wasn't as cleverly written as Gremlins. So yeah, this was a miss for me. So I decided to go back to the romances and see if I could find one that actually would stick, because I really did want to read a holiday romance. So I picked up the 12 Dates of Christmas, and luckily this one did work for me. I gave this one 4 stars. So one thing that I really enjoyed about this book was it had very wintry, snowy Christmas vibes, and I really enjoyed that, because if you're going to read a holiday romance, just punch it. Punch the winter, punch the snow, punch the Christmassiness of the story, go all out. I really like that. So I was glad for that, but it wasn't done in like a cheesy way. Like, it was authentic, but it had all that Christmas winter vibe that I was looking for. So I actually really enjoyed this story. This is about a girl who she wants to find love for the holidays. She's sick of being single. She just really wants to have love in her life and find someone, but nothing she's been doing has been working. And so there was this program where you go on a date leading up to Christmas, like an advent calendar. So every day you have a different date with a different person. And so she's like, well, that sounds fun. Even if I don't find love, at least I'll be getting out, I'll be meeting new people, doing fun things, and maybe I'll find love. And so every day she goes on this date, but this is a friends to lover trope where, the whole time though, her best friend that works at the cute little bakery down the street has been there the whole time, type of thing. Which isn't really my favorite trope, and to be honest, the romance in this book was pretty lackluster in my opinion. But I did enjoy the story for what it was, and so I enjoyed the journey, and I really liked our main character. I thought she was so fun, and she was definitely the type of person that I would personally be friends with and want to hang out with. So, I enjoyed being in her head and being on this journey with her. Although at first, all of these dates she's going on, it was like the same thing. Like, the guy was in love with somebody else, and then she'd go on another date, and I'm actually in love with somebody else, and so it was like, okay, like, let's have some variety here. Like, let's have other reasons why these dates aren't working out. But luckily, in the second half, that was fixed, and there began to be a little bit more variety in the reasons why these dates didn't turn out the way that she wanted them to. And this book also had quite a bit of typos, but at least it was like a full-length novel instead of a 65-page book. It's not as jarring. And honestly, I find at least 1 or 2 typos in every book that I read, but sometimes I just see more than normal, which was the case, unfortunately, in this book. I did find quite a few typos, but it didn't take away my enjoyment of it. I still really enjoyed this book. And this is my type of romance because it's a closed-door romance, and I'm really not into smutty books. And so I enjoyed this being a sweet holiday romance, which is what I was looking for. So yeah, I would recommend picking this one up if that's what you're looking for. It's just a sweet holiday romance, because I thought it was really fun and enjoyable, and I enjoyed my time with it. Okay, so then I picked up the Mistletoe Mystery by Anita Prose, and this is from the same author that did The Maid. So this is kind of like a novella that's in the same world as The Maid. That makes it sound like it's about a different character, but I mean, this is about The Maid from the series that she's been writing, but it's not like part of the series. It's just like a Christmas novella in between or whatever. So anyways, hope that makes sense. So The Maid, I can't remember her name right now. Molly? Yeah, I think her name's Molly. So she has found love with Manuel, and he is very sweet. He is the sweetest man ever, and they have this really cute, adorable romance that I really loved. And the mystery in this book was not very mysterious, though. So that's why I say the mystery. So I was expecting like murder or something along those lines that we're going to be solving for the holidays. But it wasn't that. There was a mystery going on, but it was very obvious to the reader what that mystery was. And this ended up being more of a romance book rather than like a murder mystery, which is what I was expecting because of, the other books in the series. They're more like cozy mysteries. And so that's why I thought this was going to be, but it's not. But I still really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good, and I really love Molly and I really love Manuel, and I thought they were really cute together. So I would give this book 4 stars. So then I decided to read a Christmas horror novel. This one's called Snowball. And this is about a Christmas elf, like the elf on the shelf, if you've heard of that, where you move the elf around your house and then the kids wake up the next morning and discover what the elf has been up to during the night. But this is an evil elf. Very fun. Good for a horror Christmas novel. So I thought this was really fun. I wasn't like extremely obsessed with it. Like I wasn't super invested in it. But I thought for what it was, I thought it was really fun and an enjoyable time. And I would probably give this about 3.5 stars. And it's funny because I would read it at night in bed because it was a Kindle version or an ebook. And it would remind me to move my own elf for my own kids. So I was like, oh, well, that's useful because I just kept forgetting. I don't know why I could not remember to move the stupid elf. But I would be reading along and I'd be like, oh yeah, I got to go move the elf. So it was very helpful. So anyways, if you have issues though with harm to animals or to kids, then I would maybe give this one a pass. It's not like, it wasn't anything that I couldn't handle. Like it wasn't super like explicitly gory or anything. But I know some people do have a really hard time when it comes to harm to animals. So just be aware that this does have that in there. And this book made me very tired. Not because it was boring, not because it was putting me to sleep, but because the main character was just so tired because he's trying to deal with the antics of this elf, and so he can't get any sleep, and he's always yawning and talking about how tired he is, and it was making me tired to read it. But anyways, I did really enjoy this one, but I had issues with the ending. I don't know if I liked the ending or not. I kind of did, and for a horror novel it kind of works, but at the same time I kind of wanted it to end differently, so I kind of have mixed feelings towards the ending. So you know, some of you might like the ending, some of you might not if you want to give this book a try. And then I have another pet peeve that's like the other book where the daughter, you know, didn't pay for her own apartment. I had a similar pet peeve in this book. So I just wanted to tell you in case you're interested. But so their son ends up having a fever, and it's a high fever. It's 103-degree fever. But they had, you know, holiday plans. And so they're like, oh, well, you know, we need to start cooking for our holiday guests or whatever. And so, you know, you look after the kid while I cook. And I'm thinking, if your kid is that sick, you cancel your plans. You don't take him out. But no, they go to this party and they have their holiday fun and they bring him along with them, even though he's got this high fever. And I'm just like, really? First of all, the kid is sick, so he's not going to be feeling well, and he's not going to want to be around a bunch of people because he's going to feel like, blah, you know? He's only like 2. And second of all, nobody else wants their kids sick for the holidays. Like, that's just so irresponsible to be like, okay, well, here's my kid who has a high fever and plunk him in the middle of other kids during Christmas time. Like, so that annoyed me. Like I said, it didn't lessen my enjoyment of the book, and it had nothing to do with the plot, but that just like bothered me. You know, if your kid's sick, stay home for their sake and for everybody else's sake. And then I read yet another holiday romance. So this one was also a short one. It's called Window Shopping by Tessa Bailey. And I had always passed on Tessa Bailey stuff because I did hear she was smutty, and I don't like smutty books. But the premise for this book just sounded so good, and for the last couple of years, I just always wanted to read it during the holidays, and so I was like, well, you know, if it's just like 1 or 2 sex scenes, I could probably just skip it. Well, it's very, very smutty. So if you love smut, then this is the book for you, because it's actually very well written smut. It's probably the best smut I've ever read, but oh boy, it's smutty. So normally I would have probably DNF'd this book because it was just like sex scene after sex scene after sex scene. But it was a testament to how good the story was that I continued to read, because I just was so invested in the romance and I just really loved these characters and I just really wanted to see what happened. I will say though, there is one sex scene that I thought was pretty gross and unhygienic. So that kind of put me off, and I'll probably always think of that scene now when it's in my head and I can't get it out, but so that sucks. But other than that, the sex was really good. I liked this romance because it was kind of one of those romances where instead of just like, oh, I'm falling in love with you and I love you, it's these characters are actually helping the other person be better people. You know, they're helping them come out of their shell. They're helping them stand up to their family who has been bad to them, or you know, helping them have respect for themselves, or you know, it's more than just, oh, I love having somebody to love. You know, it's I'm actually a better person because I love you. You know, and I love that. I love that in romance, and so I thought the author did really good in that respect. And once again, we do get the point of view from both the female main character and the male main character, which I always enjoy. I like seeing both of their perspectives. So yeah, I would probably give this book 4 stars. Really enjoyable. It probably would have been like 4.5 stars, but I took off the half star just because I really don't enjoy smutty books. So that's the only reason why it was 4 stars and not 4.5. And then I read another romance, but it's a little bit of a cheating because I didn't actually read this book this month, but I finished it in this month. So this one I did on audiobook, and I'd been making my way slowly through it for a couple of months. I just happened to finish it during December. So this is The Last Letter by Rebecca Yarros. And I actually didn't know until I was halfway through this book that this is the same author that wrote Fourth Wing. So that's pretty interesting. But this is definitely not a rom-com. This is a very heavy read. So yes, it is a romance, but it has a lot of other things going on that are pretty heavy. And for the most part, I really enjoyed this story. I thought it was really good. It was keeping my interest. I enjoyed the characters. But that ending, I hated the ending. I just did. The author threw in an unnecessary plot twist and it just ruined it. Because when I read a romance, the reconciliation and the getting together, you know, that's the payoff at the end. That's what you read romance for. And this other thing that happened kind of stepped on it and overshadowed it, and so it became the focus. And so then it was like, oh, and you know, they got married probably at a courthouse or whatever, but it was just like shunted to the side, you know. And I was like, what the heck, like, where's my catharsis, you know? Like, I don't know, because it wasn't like a miscommunication. It was like he did something wrong, he messed up. And it's like, how are they going to reconcile? How is this going to happen? Because they would be so good together, but she's got to get past her trust issues now. You know, and I was just waiting for that moment. But then when that moment came, it was just like, oh, well, we're really focusing on this other thing. And then, oh yeah, and by the way, they got together, blah. But what? Like, I felt so cheated. It was not a satisfying ending. Did not stick the landing for me. Pissed me off. So I had to take off a star for that. So this one ended up being about 3.5 stars for me. Okay, so then I did Everyone This Christmas Has a Secret. And I have not read Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone, which is the first book. But I did read the second one, which is, I think, Everyone on This Train is a Suspect. I think that's what it's called. And I really enjoyed that. I thought it was really fun. And so when I saw that he had a short little Christmas novella, I thought it would be really fun. But unfortunately, I didn't really love this book. So this author decides to break the fourth wall, and so he will tell you, this is what's going to happen in chapter 12. You know, like a murder is going to happen in chapter 12. But I'm going to find my way out of a certain situation, and at the end of that chapter, like, I don't know, like he just tells you like what's going to happen, and then he tells you, you know, this is a holiday cozy mystery, so this is the plot points that I'm going to have to get to in order for it to meet that criteria, you know. And so then like when he gets there, he'd be like, see, I told you it was a holiday murder mystery or whatever. And for some reason, it didn't bother me in the second one. I thought it was kind of fun and quirky. But in this one, it just annoyed me. It just kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and I just didn't like it. And then the story itself, I don't know, it had some really interesting moments, but then there was other parts that I just didn't care for. And there were parts, how do I explain this? So if you're familiar with R.L. Stine, especially Goosebumps, he's very known for leaving a chapter on a cliffhanger and make it seem like something terrible happened, but then like immediately it was something else. Like, you know, he stepped on the squishy blood of the monster, but then in the next chapter he looks down and, oh, it was just my slipper. You know, or something like that, you know. Or he looked at the window and he saw the scary creature, but then, you know, and it ends the chapter, and then when the next chapter begins, it's like, oh, it was just a tree. You know, like he's kind of known for that. And that's what this author was doing in this book, which kind of annoyed me because I'm like, this is an adult book, you know? Like R.L. Stine, he can get away with it because it was meant for kids. And, you know, I mean, those books were written a long time ago, and he was kind of like the new. I mean, he wasn't the only one that wrote horror for kids. I'm not saying that, but, you know, he was one of the first. And so he could get away with doing stuff that maybe by today's standards we would be like, maybe you should do something different. Like maybe you should be better, you know? And so this author was doing that in this book, but I'm thinking, this is a modern book. This is an adult novel. I think we can do better than these stupid fake outs, you know? So I felt like that was pretty cheesy. And not to say that you can't end chapters on cliffhangers and have it be something benign, because that, if done well, go ahead. But he was doing it in the cheesy R.L. Stine way, if that makes sense. So I didn't care for that. And I don't know. Halfway through, I just lost interest in this story and I wasn't loving it. So this was probably a 2-star for me. I do want to go back and read Everybody in My Family Has Killed Someone, because usually the first book in the series is the best anyways. And it's got like wintry vibes, so I think I might read it in January. But we'll see. But this one, yeah, it was okay. It wasn't great. And then speaking of R.L. Stine, I read Silent Night 3. So I absolutely love Silent Night 1 and 2. Ever since I was a kid, loved them. I've reread them. They still stand up. I still love them. And I didn't even know there was a third one until a couple of years ago. And I've been trying to get my hands on it, but it's pretty rare and it can be pretty expensive. And so I finally got a hold of a copy and I read it. And it's pretty much a rinse and repeat of the other two, but honestly, I don't care. It was just a nostalgic, fun time, and I really enjoyed it. So I would give this book 4 stars. And for those of you that are familiar with this series, this is about Reva Dalby, who's this very spoiled, mean, rich girl. And then she kind of learns her lesson throughout the holiday season that maybe she needs to be nicer. But then inevitably in the next book, she's back to being a butthead. So yeah, she not a nice person, but she's at least an interesting person. So I give her that. But yeah, I really enjoy these books. So I highly recommend it for the holiday season. So then in my Book of the Month Club subscription box, I got The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year. So that's perfect. So I decided to go ahead and just read it. And I love it because this is a holiday romance, but it's also like a murder mystery. And so I loved that combination because those are 2 genres that I really love to read, and I really kind of like having other things going on in my romance besides just the romance, so that it doesn't become stale and boring in the middle. And so I was excited about that. But I will say in this case, the romance was actually better than the murder mystery. I thought the murder mystery wasn't handled as well, but I really loved the romance, especially in the beginning. I thought it was so cute and sweet and fun, and I really enjoyed the male main character. I thought he was really fun. So I really enjoyed that aspect. But I feel like the murder mystery part kind of dropped the ball a little bit. And by the end, I was kind of like, meh. Like, I don't know how I feel about that aspect of the book. But for this being just like a light holiday read, I did enjoy it. Sometimes the author would take these moments and these chances to really showcase some drama and some tension, and then just drop the ball and squanders it. So, for example, there's one scene where the main character accuses someone of being the murderer. I can't remember if it was one person specifically or if she was just telling the room in general, you know, the murderer is amongst us or something. But either way, she accuses people of being the murderer, and then the lights go out. And we're like, oh, wow, this is going to be fun, because not only is the lights out, so maybe if the murderer was in this room, they could potentially try something, or, you'd have an excellent chance for some drama where the people are like outraged. How could you accuse us of this? And, kind of have this dramatic moment. But no, 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 no. You start the next chapter and the main characters are off on their own doing something else. Really? Like, they didn't even give the other characters a chance to respond or to say anything about this accusation. And I just thought that was weird that the author would make that choice, but I don't know. And that happened one or two other times. And I was like, you're squandering these excellent moments for some tension. Why would you do that? So that was a little bit frustrating. So one thing about this book and window shopping that I didn't like, both male main characters would call the female main character sweetheart, and that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Like, if you're already in an established relationship or you're married and, your significant other calls you sweetheart, fine. I have no problem with that. But when they, just barely met and they're calling him sweetheart, it comes across as sexist and condescending to me. It's like when somebody's like, okay, sweetheart, go and grab that for me or whatever, or come on, sugar, be faster, I don't know. That's how it comes across to me. Like when a man is calling me doll or sugar or sweetie or babe, or it just sounds like ugh, like cringy. But I mean, obviously, if you're already in a relationship and have been for a while, and he's like, "Oh, sweetheart," that's fine. But when you just barely met me, don't call me sweetheart. Like, I don't know. I don't like that. And I thought it was funny that I read 2 romances this month and they both called her sweetheart. But yeah, I just found it cringy. I don't like that. But that's just a personal thing. I mean, I'm sure there's other people that are just fine with it, but that's just not something I personally enjoy. So I'd probably give this book about 3.5 stars. I seem to be giving a lot of books this month 3.5 stars. That's kind of funny. But anyway, so I mean, for a light holiday romance / cozy mystery, I mean, it was fun to read, but it definitely had its problems, and I wouldn't say it was like a new favorite or anything. Okay, so that's all of the holiday books that I read this month, and then I had 2 book club picks that I read this month. So for my online book club that I'm a part of, the book chosen was The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon by Stephen King. And unfortunately, I hated this book. I gave this 1 star. So this is probably the worst Stephen King book I've read so far. And I hope that doesn't turn anybody off. But, yes, Stephen King is an amazing author, obviously. But that doesn't mean he's infallible and can't write books that are misses. And for me personally, this was just a miss. So this is about a little girl who's 9 years old, and she goes on a hike with her mom and her brother, and she gets lost for about 9 days, I believe. And so this is her journey trying to survive in the wilderness. Yeah, it was pretty boring. It was very repetitive. The descriptions were just very repetitive, and I just couldn't connect. So this little 9-year-old girl, she did not think like a 9-year-old. A lot of her thoughts were very adult, like, oh, the sun is blocked by a cloud, so now I can't tell the time because I can't see the sun, or, like what 9-year-old knows how to tell time by the sun, and that's just a small example, but there was many examples where she just didn't seem like a 9-year-old girl. But then, on the other hand, she would not make very good choices, which obviously for a story like this to work, you kind of have to make dumb choices. But she kept saying like, oh, I went 50 paces or I went 70 paces or whatever, and I didn't meet up with the trail that I thought I was going to, because she thought she was taking a shortcut. And so she's like, oh, well, it should have been here. Oh, well, I guess I'll just keep going, And I'm like, then turn around. Then go back. Then go back to the trail where you know where it is. Forget about the shortcut and just go back to the trail. And you could say, oh, she's only 9, she doesn't think that way. But then there's other things where she was thinking more like an adult. So why couldn't she think as an adult in those situations and not in the most obvious one, which is to turn around and go back? You know, and he tried to make her seem smart though, because she would pick a landmark, you know, like, oh, there's that tree, and that tree will keep me going straight, you know. And so he tried to make her seem like smart while she's simultaneously being dumb. So I don't know. And that annoys me. Or like she really wants to listen to her Walkman, but the batteries died, and she's like, "Oh, this would really help me a lot if I could listen to my Walkman." But she also has like a Game Boy or something in her pack, and I'm like, "Then switch the batteries." I don't know, just stuff like that. Kind of annoyed me, but I mean, honestly, in stories like this, that tends to happen a lot, where the characters don't necessarily make the right choices. So it is what it is, but and she swears a lot. I'm like, she's a little girl, but she's like swearing like a sailor. Which I know, I guess in that situation I'd swear too, but I don't know, it just seemed disingenuous. Like he wasn't treating this character like a little girl, which I think would have honestly been more compelling if she had read more like a little girl. And as a mother of a 9-year-old girl myself, the thought of this little girl being out in the wilderness by herself should have been terrifying. But for some reason it wasn't. And I wonder if it's because this little girl didn't seem like a little girl. I don't know. I don't know if that's the reason. But for whatever reason, I just, you know, it should have terrified me, but it didn't. It was boring and it was repetitive. And it had a lot of like baseball stuff in it because she's using her fan of a certain baseball player to help her get through these woods. And I just like skimmed those parts because I found it very boring to hear about this baseball stuff. I'm just not into sports at all. There just wasn't anything very interesting happening. Like he tried to put like a tiny dollop of creepiness into it, but I don't know. This one just really didn't work for me. I just didn't enjoy it. I really didn't. And honestly, I'm so grateful it was so short because it was only like 245 pages or something like that, which for King is very short. So I am grateful for that because I probably would have DNF'd it otherwise. And then speaking of the bad choices that she would make, there were certain things, I don't know if they're plot holes, I don't know if that's what you would call it, but there were certain things that would happen. I'll give you an example, where she's like, oh, the thunder was rumbling in the east, and I'm like, you're lost. You don't know which direction is east. And if you did know which direction was east, then that would help you find your way. So just certain things like that, which I know is probably nitpicky, but it just kind of bothered me. This just honestly felt like Stephen King was on a long flight and he had nothing else to do, and he just jotted down some random idea that was in his head and decided to publish it. Like, not to be rude, but that's kind of how this book felt to me. Like, it felt like an idea that needed to be fleshed out better, that needed to be reworked, that needed to be rewritten. But instead, he's just like, oh, I jotted down this little idea and let's just publish it. Like, that's what it felt like to me. So yeah, I did not like this book. 1 star. But luckily for my in-person book club that I'm a part of, I loved that book. 5 stars. So I am talking about The Girl in His Shadows. And if you're like me, I am a huge fan of like Victorian medical practices. And so I don't know why, but I'm just morbidly fascinated by that. And so if you're like me and you really enjoy the topic of Victorian medical practices, then you will love this book because there is a lot of medical stuff in this book. Because this is about a girl who has a disease. I can't actually remember what it is. Anyway, she has some kind of sickness, you know, like influenza or something. It's not influenza, but or scarlet fever or something like that. You know, she had some kind of illness, but I can't remember what it was at this moment. But her entire family is killed. And so the doctor takes her home to his own house, which is also his clinic, so that he can help her survive. But then his housekeeper, once she survives, she kind of grows attached to her. And she's like, you know, I don't want to just send her away because now she's an orphan. She's like, I don't want to send her to some church or some orphanage somewhere. You know, we should just keep her. And so he's like, okay, whatever, we can keep her. And so she ends up being a bit of an apprentice to him in his surgery. So he has a surgery down in the basement, and she'll come like draw medical pictures for him, or she'll help organize his notes because he's kind of scatterbrained, and she'll hand him tools, and she'll help like wire his bones or put his specimens in jars, like she'll just help him. And he discovers that she's got a really bright mind for medical stuff, and so she helps him with research and on all these different things. But at this time in history, women aren't allowed to be doctors or surgeons, and so she has to keep quiet about what she's been doing with him. And then he hires this other man to be his actual apprentice to come help him in his surgery. And so, inevitably he finds out what she's been doing. And so now she's freaking out that he's going to tell the world and she's going to end up going to jail. So anyways, and the bit of a romance sparks between these two individuals. And this is the type of romance that I really love because it was more of a slow burn and it seemed more genuine. And, he was kind of a prick at first. And, he's like, oh, women should be cooking and your house is too messy and you should be dressing up for dinner and all these different things because he has a strict notion of what he feels like a Victorian woman should be like. But then he slowly starts to fall for her and realize how amazing and smart she is. And so I just really liked that. That's my favorite kind of romance. And so, but it's not a romance novel. Like, that's not the focus of this book. But I did enjoy its inclusion. And I just thought this book was fantastically written, fantastically done. If you like historical fiction, then I think you would really enjoy this book. There is one part where potentially there's some animal, not cruelty, but like medical things happening where they have to use animals, which is what they did back in the day. They probably still do, honestly. So that part was a little bit hard for me, I will admit. But one part that could have been worse, they didn't actually go there. And I was kind of like, whew, that's good. I know that probably doesn't make sense because I don't want to spoil anything, but it could have, there was potential to be worse than what it was, if that makes sense. So yeah, I thought this was really well written and I really enjoyed the subject matter. I enjoyed the characters. I liked seeing the character growth with both of our characters and I just thought it was fantastic. I will say about halfway through, it was a little bit weird and confusing because the author would like refer to characters under a certain name. Like, this is Dr. Croft. But then like halfway through, all of a sudden she kept calling him Horace. And for a second, I would be like, wait, who's that? Oh, that's Dr. Croft. But he was always just referred to as Dr. Croft. But now, even in like one paragraph, she'd be like, Dr. Croft did this. And then Horace went into the other room. And you're like, oh, wait, who's Horace? Oh, that's Dr. Croft. But in the same paragraph, you're talking about this character using two different names. So that was a little bit confusing. And when it came to like the love interest, it sort of made sense because she would call him Dr. Gibson, but then like halfway through she would start to refer to him as Daniel. But that made more sense to me, and same with another character named Harry, because as she got closer to him, it would make sense that she would start using his Christian name, So at first, he's just Dr. Gibson and I don't like him. Blech. But then as she gets closer, it just starts to fall for him. He's Daniel, And so that made sense. But Dr. Croft, she's been living with him since she was a child. So why all of a sudden is it switching back and forth? That was a little bit weird and confusing. But like I said, that's a very small, very minor, very nitpicky thing. But it just kind of like took me out of the story a little bit. So I just thought I'd mention it. But yeah, 5 stars. Highly recommend this book. Loved it. And I'm so happy because actually just before this book was picked for the book club, I had just bought The Specimen by this author. Well, I say this author, but it's actually a duo. It's 2 people that wrote this book together. I don't know if The Specimen is the same, if it's the both of them or if it's just one of them. I don't know. But as far as The Girl in the Shadow, it was written by 2 women, not just the one. And I'm assuming The Specimen is the same way. But anyways, I digress. So these authors, they wrote this book called The Specimen, and I was so excited for it. It sounds great, sounds amazing, and I just bought it. And then like a couple weeks later, they're like, oh, by the way, our book club pick is this book, and it just happened to be written by the same author. And so I was like, oh, this is great, because not only am I into medical stuff and into the Victorian age, but I'm also going to see if I enjoy the writing style. And it made me even more excited to now go read the specimen. So I'm very excited to get to that one. So anyways, that's all the books that I have for you. That's all the books that I read in the month of December. Please leave me a comment down below and tell me what your favorite book of the month was. And if you liked this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell so you'll always be alerted to my videos. I post every Friday, and I hope to see you in the next video. See ya!